Hi, my name is Madison Laurens. I'm a nurse at NOLA General Hospital. I first met the defendant when I was working at the hospital. I worked at the front desk and I met him there. He was wearing plain clothes as he asked me if we were hiring. I said I didn't know, and I asked him what he was going to do, and he said he was a doctor. The second time I saw him, he came back to the hospital wearing a doctor's coat. He said he was there for an interview and ended up as the emergency room administrator. Once he was hired, he decided which ones of us he wanted on his staff. He lined us up and looked over our credentials. I was one of the nurses he picked on the team, and after that, I saw him every day. I never saw him sign any documents or work on any patients while I was there. I mostly worked as a receptionist at the desk. I greeted patients, checked people in, and filled out our charts. I was not often on the floor where the doctors were consulting patients, and I was swooned by how caring he was and how sweet he was towards me, and we started dating. I took him to meet my parents, and he expressed to my father that he was a lawyer and wanted to help at his firm. My dad ended up hiring him as an assistant prosecutor for his law firm, and he proposed shortly after meeting my parents. We started planning our engagement party. At the engagement party, Frank was wearing a dashing cream-colored suit jacket, black bow tie, black dress slacks, a red flower pinned to the outside of his jacket, black leather shoes, and black socks with a black and silver wrist watch. While we were at the engagement party, mingling with guests, I noticed Frank started acting strange. He seemed on edge and nervous, and later in the night, I followed him up the stairs to show him some of the wedding checks we received. He raced me into the far bedroom of the house. He was visibly distressed, upset, and talking crazy. He kept asking me if I loved him, no matter what. He pulled down two huge suitcases from on top of the bed, and they were filled with cash. He started rummaging through drawers while he rambled on, packed a small stack of clothes into the suitcase. He told me he had run away from home and that he had his whole other life. He wasn't even a pilot, doctor, lawyer, or a Lutheran. His name wasn't even Frank Connors, but Frank Malone. He told me he had more than just two suitcases full of money. We would be safe, happy, and content with just each other. All of this was overwhelming and happening so fast. I didn't know if we had any time to process this. He went towards the window and put the suitcases on the roof and stepped outside. He cupped my face and told me to promise I would meet him in 2 days, January 5th, 2020, at the Miami International Airport at 10 a.m. I couldn't tell anyone, and he handed me a wad of cash. He told me to catch a cab after my parents went to sleep, and I was to give the driver all the cash, asking them to drive through the night to the airport. He went out and left with the two suitcases. Shortly after he left, the police burst through the room, and by that point, he was gone. That was the last time I saw him. I was so frightened. I didn't know what was happening. I decided to turn him in. He was a criminal, and I didn't want to be a part of it. I did try to meet him at the airport at 10 a.m. with the police help, but he never showed.
All right, please state your name for the record.
My name is Madison Laurens.
And you're working as a nurse at NOLA General Hospital, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And for how long have you been working at the hospital?
I started in October of 2018, and I'm presently still working there.
And you met the defendant in January 2019, is that correct?
Correct.
And is it true that the defendant identified himself as Frankie Williams?
Yes, he did.
Can you point out this same man in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's sitting next to the defense attorney.
Ms. Laurens, could you describe the occasion in which you first met the defendant?
He came up to the front desk of the emergency room and wanted to know how a particular patient was doing, so I told him.
And what was he wearing when you first met?
He had on a bright orange sweater with an orange and white striped vest, I think, and colored light pants.
So he looked like a normal visitor at the hospital?
Yes, he did.
Now, is it true that he asked you if the hospital was hiring?
Yes, I told him I didn't know.
And then you proceeded to ask him what he wanted to do in terms of a position, correct?
Yes, he told me that he was a doctor.
So the defendant returned to the hospital a second time, and this time he asked you to work for him. Is that correct, Ms. Laurens?
Yes, it is.
Did he ask anyone else to work under his supervision?
Yes, he lined us all up in the hallway and picked out who he wanted to work for him. He asked 2 doctors, 3 nurses, and he had a few front desk staff employees.
How many front desk staff employees?
4.
So he had established a team to work for him at the hospital.
Yes.
Can you describe to me what he was wearing when he hired you?
He was wearing a white lab coat. He had pens in his front pocket. He also wore a white dress shirt and a gold tie with cream dress pants.
So he looked like a doctor.
Yes, he did.
Now, you also had a relationship with the defendant, is that true?
Yes, we were engaged.
And how long were you two together for?
We dated for about a month and then we got engaged in March.
But you're no longer together?
No, I never saw him after the night of the engagement party.
And this is the same engagement party where the FBI showed up wanting to arrest the defendant.
Yes.
Is this true? Is it true that he knew the FBI was after him?
Yes. Well, he seemed to be in a hurry to leave. He was very panicked, but at the time I didn't know why.
And it was at this time he told you that his name really wasn't Frankie Williams, correct?
Correct.
He also told you that his name was actually Frank Malone and that he wasn't a real doctor, correct?
Yes, he told me that he never went to medical school, he never went to Harvard, and he wasn't even a Lutheran.
Is it true that he had 2 suitcases full of cash?
Yes, he said that he had enough cash for the rest of our lives. He told me to meet him at the Miami International Airport. Oh, he told me we could live anywhere we wanted to, but I had to trust him.
He then proceeded to give you a large amount of this money and instructed you to meet him at Miami International Airport, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Miss Laurens, can you tell me exactly what he instructed you to do for him?
He told me that in 2 days I needed to use the money to get a taxi cab, that I had to give all of it to the driver and tell him to drive through the night and all the way to the airport. He told me to leave the house after my parents went to sleep.
So he wanted you to run away together.
Yes, he told me we'd be happy together.
And you watched him leave the party, right, Miss Laurens?
Yes, I did.
He jumped out the window, is that correct?
Yes.
Once again, can I have you identify the man that told you his name was Frankie Williams?
Yes, he's right next to the defense attorney.
Thank you, Miss Laurens. No further questions.